So part of one of the really challenging things when it comes to healing your relationship to food and your body is having your body change in the process. And one of the difficult parts of your body changing is having to buy new clothes. If you've been here, you know what I mean. And so we're going to dive into the reasons why this might be true, why it's so difficult to buy new clothes for yourself, why you might be holding on to clothes that no longer fit you anymore. And we're going to challenge some of those things, as well as I'm going to offer you some ways that you can navigate through this and hopefully offer you some solutions if you're feeling like you're stuck.
You definitely want to take a listen to this.
But before we dive into things, my name is Catherine Metzler. I'm a registered dietitian, certified intuitive eating counselor, here to help you create peace with food and your body, and to help you reclaim your headspace so that you can reclaim your life. If you are new here, click like and click subscribe below. Welcome. If you are not new here, welcome back, and let's dive into things. One of the really common parts of healing your relationship to food and your body, recovering from disordered eating, is that your body might change in the process. And that's hard for a whole host of reasons. And one of those parts is that you no longer may have clothes that fit you. And you might be holding onto clothes that are a little too tight. You've got clothes in your closet that used to fit you, and you're wondering, why am I holding on to these? Why can't I get rid of them? How do I navigate this? So I want to talk about first some of the reasons why this may be happening for you. And then we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do to help you possibly get rid of some of the clothes in your closet if they no longer fit you, if that's something that resonates. First reason why you might be having a hard time getting rid of some of your clothes is that you associate your own identity with the size of clothing that you're in. Second reason is that you are grieving a changing body. You are grieving the loss of your old body while you're moving into a new body. Third reason is that diet culture and size oppression makes it really difficult for you to find clothes that fit your body. And the last common reason is that diet culture makes you feel like you've given up if you are changing sizes and no longer can fit into your old clothes. So let's dive into more specifically what each one of these means, starting with the first one. If you're associating your size with your identity, it's going to be really hard to get rid of old clothing, right? If you believe that part of what you have to offer this world, and I want you to know this is often not conscious, if you believe internally that part of what you offer to the world is the size that you're in, that you have gotten to a certain size and that is part of who you believe you are, it's going to be really difficult to get rid of old clothing, because essentially that means that you are tossing that idea, tossing that identity, and developing a new sense or felt sense of acceptance with where you're at. And you might not be ready for that. That can be really, really challenging to be confronted with this idea that part of your identity has historically been part of the body size that you're in and the size of clothing that you wear. And look, how could you not, considering the culture that we exist in? So much of what you've been told is that your identity is associated with the body size and the clothing that you wear. And so if you're experiencing this, just know that you're not alone, that it's okay. These are things to just think about and to consider if you're holding on to clothes in your closet that may no longer fit you. The second reason that you might be holding on to clothes that no longer fit you is because you are grieving the loss of your old body. And what I mean by that is the loss of the body size that you used to be in. This process can take a long time. There's a lot of things that come up as we're moving through the grief of no longer being in the body that we used to be in, grief of maybe how we used to be treated when we were in that small body, grief of how other people responded to your weight loss or your body size, grief of the kinds of privileges that you may have had access to, the grief of moving through the world differently, all kinds of things that make a ton of sense. So as you're transitioning into, or if you are in a larger body now as a result of doing your healing work around food, it's really common to hold on to old clothes because it means that you still have some kind of connection to that smaller body, or maybe even wish that you might go back there because of all the things that it represented for you. The third reason that you might be holding on to clothes, and this one is a really important one, is that you may not have access to clothes that fit your style and your size. We exist in an incredibly size oppressive world. There are not a lot of stores and options with plus size clothing. And so it's easy for me to say, for example, go out and buy some new clothes, but what happens if there's no stores that actually carry your size? Where are you supposed to go buy clothes? And that's often a part that's missing about this. You might be holding on to clothes that don't fit you anymore because the hope is that you might go back to those sizes so that you could start fitting into clothes that actually fit your style and your body size. This is a real problem in the industry. It's a way that people in larger bodies experience discrimination, that a lot of stores don't carry a range of sizes, and it's an issue because you can't feel comfortable in your body, you can't dress your body in the way that you want to dress your body. And so this might be one of the barriers for you in regards to finding clothes that fit you and having a hard time getting rid of old clothes. And the fourth reason is that diet culture is making you feel and has led you to believe that you are giving up if you are going up in size. And therefore, you are likely holding on to clothing that no longer fits you, that's too tight. And we really want to work towards challenging this belief, this idea, but I want to just normalize that it is okay if you feel that way. It's okay that you've internalized that belief that somehow you're giving up if you've gone up in size. This is what we're told. This is how diets encourage you to continue doing their diet. But of course you feel that way. Of course you feel like you've given up if you are going up in size, which may lead you to holding on to too tight clothing so that you can get that felt sense of being in control again or feeling like you didn't give up. And there is a fifth reason that I forgot, which is the financial access privilege that's part of buying new clothes. It's easy for me to say, hey, go out and buy new clothes if you have clothing stores that carry your size. But if you don't have the finances to do that, that's not going to be possible. And so there are most certainly many people that experience this, and this might be you as well, feeling strapped for cash and not really being able to freely buy new sizes. Okay, so now that you know some of the reasons why you might be holding on to too tight clothes, what do you do with this information? How do you challenge some of the beliefs that you have about your identity being associated with your size? How do you let go of these old clothes? I'm going to answer that question and I'm going to give you some things to consider. I want you to first think about buying clothing for yourself as an act of self-care. What I mean by this more specifically is that if you are wearing too tight clothes, clothes that no longer fit you, or holding on to too tight clothes that are just hanging out in your closet, and every time you open your closet, you see them, you're reminded of things that bring up feelings that are difficult for you, consider that buying clothes and allowing yourself to get rid of too tight clothes is an act of care and love to your body. You deserve clothes that fit you. You deserve clothes that you feel better in. You might not feel good in them, but better in them. You deserve clothes that fit you comfortably. This can really be a way that you are practicing self-care, an act of care towards yourself by buying clothes that fit and allowing yourself to get rid of old clothes. You can do this by buying clothes that are in the colors that you like. You can buy different fabrics that are comfortable. And if you're not ready to buy new clothes, the first step for you might be getting rid of clothes that are too tight for you. You can do this first by putting them into bags and storing them away and just see what it feels like to have them in a different place, or you can bag them up and get rid of them. Then when you're feeling ready and if it's accessible, then you can start to buy new clothes for yourself and buy some items. I often recommend though that if you're not ready to buy new clothes, you can start with jewelry or other things that you like to adorn yourself with. Maybe it's shoes or other things, just to begin to see what it feels like to buy something for yourself that you feel good in, that brings you joy and pleasure. The next recommendation that I would make for you as it relates to getting rid of too tight clothes and possibly buying yourself new clothes is to really challenge this notion around your identity and your self-worth being associated with your body size. You are so much more. You will always be so much more than the size of your body and the size of your pants. And I know that it's easy for me to say it and easy for you to say it, and it's very different to believe it. And so a lot of the ways that we do this, challenge our internalized beliefs about our size and about bodies, is by getting curious about some of the judgments and beliefs and feelings are there. What do you believe about the size that you are currently in? What do you fear about getting rid of some of your old clothes? What does it mean for you? Does it have any significance to go up in a size? What was it like for you to observe the adults around you going up in size when you were growing up, or what did they say about other people? What comes up for you when you imagine letting go of those old tight clothes? Get curious about your experience. This is a place that we can move from without feeling like we need to force ourselves into getting rid of our clothes yesterday or buying new clothes. you get to ask yourself these questions because it's not so straightforward. Often when we're talking about clothing, we're not just talking about clothes. When you think about the too tight clothes in your closet, you probably have had experiences in them, desires in them. Maybe you bought them for aspiration. Maybe you bought them and wore them for an event. Remember that clothing is often tied to experiences and memories. And so it's okay if you don't want to get rid of them. But if you're feeling stuck, you might get curious about what are the things that you associate with those clothes. Can you take a moment to be with those pieces of clothing and reflect on the kinds of things that you experienced in those clothes? Can you thank that piece of clothing for giving you something, whatever it was meant to give you, even if you didn't end up wearing it or fitting into it? Take a moment. You might, again, hold it close to you. I'm remembering that Marie Kondo in her book talked about this as it relates to releasing some of the things that we hold on to. And I think that this is really applicable in the context of clothing because the clothing likely gave you something and it can feel hard to release that. Sometimes I find it helpful to thank the clothes for what it gave to you and then to allow yourself to let it go. So in conclusion, I want you to consider a couple of things. One, that this doesn't need to be fast. You don't need to get rid of all of your clothes right away. The first step always can be that you get curious about why you're holding on to clothes that are too tight for you and ask yourself if some of the things that I've mentioned resonate with you. Are you holding on to them because they're part of your identity? Are you holding on to them because it is a problem that there aren't sizes that are accessible for you? Are you holding on to it because you're grieving your old body? Are you holding on to it because it's associated with memories that you don't want to let go of? Ask yourself some questions to get started. And the most important thing is compassion, compassion, compassion. Be kind with yourself as you're doing this. Be compassionate with yourself. Changing sizes in a diet culture is really difficult because you're told all kinds of things about your value and worth as a human being related to your body size. I hope that was helpful for you. I want to continue having this conversation with you around getting rid of old clothes and too tight clothes. It can feel really difficult, especially if you're doing this work around healing your relationship to food and your body. So let's talk more in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, share it with other people in your life, and I'll see you next week.